This is an interview that I did with Kenny Vaughan. Kenny's one of the best guitar players alive. He's a great musician, and he is a damn good hang. He was fortunate enough to spend quite a bit of time around Merle Haggard over the years. I asked him if he would share some of those stories. We recorded this in my living room in East Nashville, and I enjoyed it very much. So sit back and imagine you're on my couch in East Nashville listening to Kenny Vaughan tell stories about Merle Haggard.
Good story was one night the promoters throwing things at me from the side of the stage, trying to get my attention. And I look over at him, and he says, 20 more minutes, 20 more minutes, tell her 20 more minutes. So I told the lead singer 20 more minutes, and she looks at me like, we're done. I said, well, he wants 20 more minutes. So we gave him 20 more minutes. So we came off and we were like, what's going on? He said, well, Merle's not here. Band's here, but there's no Merle. And so the buses were downstairs in this parking garage. And so I had my little Fender amp and my guitar, and so the Strangers went out and started playing. I think it was Kenny. What was that guy's name? He was fronting the band at the time, singing harmony, and would open the show. And he's out there doing, Heartaches by the Number or Wind Me Up or whatever, It's just the stock country covers, the Merle Haggard show, So I go downstairs to load my amp into the bus with my guitar, and I'm down there. I'm open up the bay, and I hear this horn honking, and this guy gets out of a limousine. I said, "Hey," he says, "Can you help me out here?" And so I close the bay and I walk up there, and Merle Haggard and Bonnie Owens are in the back of the limousine, drunk. And he says, "Can you help me get this guy up these steps to the stage? Can you show me where the stage is?" I was like, yeah. So we carried Merle Haggard up these stairs, me and this guy, right? And I got him through to the side of the stage, and he brushes us off, and he straightens up his hat and kind of shakes it off a little bit. And he walks out, and they're in the middle of a song, and he walks out on stage and takes his guitar, and he hits this big old E chord. The band stops, and he goes, "Wang!" And he starts singing Folsom Prison Blues, right? And so I was like, oh, shit, I didn't remember if I'd locked the bus or not, So I ran back down the steps, he's in the middle of Folsom Prison Blues. I go back down the steps, make sure the bus is locked, and this lady's trying to stagger out of it's Bonnie Owens, and she says, "Young man, can you help me to the stage, please?" So, yes, Miss Owens. So I carry Bonnie up the steps, this long flight of steps, and she stumbles up there, and she's kind of giggling, and looking a little bit embarrassed, And so I pointed her to the stage, and she walked out there and assumed her place at the microphone, and starts clapping along. And he's still singing Folsom Prison Blues, right? And there was the tour was sponsored by George Dickel Whiskey. And they had these two guys that would walk around backstage. And one guy had a bottle of Jack Daniels, and one guy had a bottle of George Dickel. And they would say, "Now, I'm going to pour you a glass of this Jack Daniels. Now, you drink that. Now, I want you drink the Jack. Okay, you drink that. Now, I want you to drink this George Dickel. You can't tell me that Jack Daniels is as good as this George Dickel." Right? And that was their routine, And I quickly figured out that maybe that's why everybody's a little bit drunk on this tour, And so it was a good tour, but anyway, that was the only time I ever saw Merle Haggard inebriated. That was the one and only time I ever saw him that way. He wasn't a big drinker. I don't know if, he wasn't a big, he smoked a lot of weed, but he wasn't a big drinker. He smoked pot from the time he woke up to the time he laid his head down. When I started playing with Marty, he and Merle were big friends, and we cut a song called Farmer's Blues in the studio down in Cool Springs down there. There's there used to be a studio down there called the Sound Kitchen. And it was funny because, Marty had it all, he'd written the song with his wife, Connie Smith, and he had it all figured out. And Merle Haggard's supposed to get there at like 6:30. Well, about 6:30, Merle Haggard calls and said, "Hey, can you call the Cracker Barrel and have them cater we're hungry. We're going to be a little bit late, but we'll be there." So it was crazy because, the Cracker Barrel delivers this giant spread of food, enough for like 20 people. And I swear, like right at the time that food got set out, all these people started coming in that I kind of knew, from different areas of the country scene around Nashville, but they were all Merle Haggard people. And they were not in his bus. They were just arriving, And it was like a whole backstage thing going on in the lounge at the Sound Kitchen. There's like 20 people in there, And then his bus pulls up, and then there's another, 6 people that get off just to make Merle Haggard be able to come in and sing. And he, he's a shy guy, kind of self-conscious, uncomfortable in a crowd kind of person. He's not the most social, he's not the kind of guy he's very shy. So he came in and checked everybody out, and we went over the song, and he suggested a few lyric changes. My favorite one is the line is, "The tractor's broke, the fence is down," and Haggard says, "I think, can we change that to, the tractor is old, the fence is down?" And Marty was like, "Yeah, that'll work." I mean, that's Haggard's a wonderful poet. So he. And then I was in the booth right next to him, and I could see him through the window. And I'd never been in the studio with Haggard before. And he stood at the microphone, and he gyrated around when he sang. Like he would like gyrate, and it was almost like looking at James Brown or something, singing. And he really threw himself into the performance of the song. And what you hear on the record is that. Just that first take, of him singing the shit out of it, it's a little ballad, but and I'm there playing the guitar, looking at him with my headphones on, and he's in my head, and the headphones, I'm watching him, and, I'm like, wow, look at that, man. It's Merle Haggard singing. He's very shy and nice and kind of quiet and standoffish, and it took him a long time to where he got to be friends with me, and years later he would talk to me, we'd talk about guitar players and guitar and stuff, music, whatever. He's a music hound, crazy. Last time we were at his house, we took Chris Scruggs with him, and we ended up talking about Bob Dunn, who was the steel guitar player for Milton Brown, and he was a big Bob Dunn fan. Nobody ever played like Bob Dunn. He was like a Dixieland player. And Chris Scruggs went off with Merle Haggard on this Bob Dunn thing. Why Bob Dunn sounded different from anybody else, because he listened to, he was a Texan who had heard a lot of Dixieland, and he sounds like a trombone player when he plays the steel, And I was like, you're right. They're right. They're big Bob Dunn fans, those two. I was like, wow,
Is this the picture I saw of Chris with the Lefty Frizzell
guitar?
guitar?
Yeah. The Lefty Frizzell guitar, was the first guitar that Merle Haggard ever played on stage. When he was 16 or 17, his friend, who was a little bit older than him, they went down to this beer garden place near Bakersfield, and I can't play it in the name. It's a beer garden, and they had shows there, and you can look it up, I think. But anyway, they went down to see Lefty. During the course of the evening, this guy goes and gets Merle, and he drags him backstage, which was probably just where the beer was, back behind the stage, this place, a honky-tonk, glorified honky-tonk, maybe a dance kind of thing, He says, "Hey, Merle, this guy can sing just like you." And so Lefty handed him that guitar, the Lefty Frizzell. It's a Bigsby neck on a J200 Gibson body. Paul Bigsby put the neck on there and wrote Lefty Frizzell in pearl inlays into the fingerboard, That's a famous guitar. But anyway, he hands him that guitar, and so he said, "Sing for me." So Merle sang a couple of songs, and I said, "What did you sing, man?" And he said, "I'm not really sure." He said, I can't remember what two he mentioned that probably he sang, but they weren't Lefty songs. So he said, "Get up there on the stage with my band and go sing a couple of songs." And so Merle, he's holding Lefty's guitar, and Lefty just pushes him up on the stage, and he sang a couple of songs. That was the first time he was ever on stage.
First time he sang into a microphone, even.
Yeah. And so he's playing with Lefty Frizzell's band playing Lefty Frizzell's guitar. And so anyway, that long story, that guitar ended up at Retrofret in Brooklyn for sale. And they contacted Marty, and Marty said, look, I'm not interested in that guitar because that guitar should be owned by Merle Haggard. And so he arranged for those guys to fly the guitar to Palisadro, where Merle lived out by Reading there. And they took the guitar to Merle's house and made a deal. They they actually lowered the price so he could, have it. And that's where it lives to this day. And that's why Scruggs is playing it in the picture there. We've all played that guitar. I've got a picture of me playing the guitar on my phone here.
How's it played? How's it sound?
Oh man, it's amazing. It's a 1950 J200 Gibson body, which is the biggest acoustic that Gibson made, and the top of the line. And Paul Bigsby, the great steel guitar builder and electric guitar builder in California, who was really the guy basically responsible for people having pedals on their steel guitar. And the Bigsby vibrato unit, and the Fender headstock, 6 on a side headstock, that all comes from Paul Bigsby, whose shop was right by the Fender shop. And anyway, Paul Bigsby put that neck on there, which is a Bigsby neck, which is generally they play better than any other necks. They're better made, and he mounted it onto that guitar, and that was Lefty's guitar. Actually, the name is on the pick guard. Now that I think about it, yeah, it's inlaid on the pick guard, and it has the J200 fingerboard, but with a different neck on it. It's really a fast neck. It's like playing an electric guitar, but it sounds like $1 million, man. We would go out there, and anytime we were touring around California, Marty always would like detour and go visit Merle, and we would record with him up at his studio in the back of his house. Sometimes, one time the 4 of us backed him up, cutting a couple of Bob Dylan tunes. And it was always fun to hang out in his living room, and he'd talk about music with us. We were like his audience, He felt comfortable around us, and he could talk about stuff that maybe he knew that we were just as crazy about the stuff as he is,
Like, what would those subjects be?
Jimmy Rogers, Lefty Frizzell, Hank Williams, Bob Wills, whatever.
Would he sit around and, how we all noodle on guitar?
Oh, yeah.
Sitting around?
Love to jam. Yeah, we'd sit around and pick with him. Yeah, love to do that. He'd tell stories. We'd ask him questions. He has a good memory for sessions and stuff like that, like who played what on what song and that kind of thing. There's really nothing much to tell, really. I mean, he was a great singer and a great songwriter that had a great band, and it's amazing how long they stayed on the road, from 1965 or 66 till right before he died. Norman was still playing steel. He came on board in 68 when Fuzzy decided he couldn't play steel and manage anymore. And Fuzzy was still there to he showed up last time we played in California in Bakersfield. He came to the show, Norman was there at our show. It's amazing how long. I mean, Merle Haggard wore out a lot of musicians. A lot of them, died, during their tenure as strangers. A lot of them just couldn't handle it anymore. They just had to leave, But Norman hung in there from 68 till it was only last year, right? Haggard died 16, right? So that's a pretty good run.
Do you remember the last time you saw him?
Yeah, I was up at his house right several months before he passed away. We were at his house.
Was he in bad shape at that point?
Yeah, he wasn't feeling good. He put on a good performance for us that day. He was glad we were there, and but I could see it was an effort for him to breathe, even though he was still smoking weed.
That might have made him feel better.
Oh, I'm sure it did. He knew what was going on with himself more than anybody let on, and I think he chose to go out the way he did. I think he could have maybe had some, incredibly invasive operation and maybe prolonged his life, but I think I don't think he wanted to go through that. That's my guess. From reading between the lines, that's what I assume.
When you left that day, did you realize that might be the last time you see him?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we were pretty much convinced of it, I would say, without saying so,
Nobody said it to each other
Uh-uh.
after you left.
No, but we knew.
That was Kenny Vaughan sharing stories about Merle Haggard. If you enjoyed this, please click the like button, share this with your friends, and leave me a comment down below. And I'll catch you guys down the road. Much love to you.